Okay, uh, gnomes. The scenario is, say, in a mountain range, family of dwarves, they're living in some little tunnel, some cave, and a toddler leaves the family, finds a crack, crawls through it, and sees through the erosion, a stone. Crawls up to it and feels compelled to touch it, lick it, and as a result, um, that child is overwhelmed by the stone and sort of, their body changes. Uh, they become stunted. They don't necessarily age, or like their bodies may grow a little bit to like a certain height, um, but it's like all they eat it would be, or all they would live off of would be like water from the caverns and you know licking the stone, whatever, like mushrooms and tree roots and like maybe uh, birds and bats that they can throw stones at. Uh, but the usual of, you know, they're kind of euphoric. They become strong, uh, and what else? Not sure about like sight. If they can look in the dark or see in the dark or not. I think that'd make a lot of sense if they could. But what else? They don't reproduce, and I'm thinking that the game would get to the point where their fingernails change. They can actually, start digging through rock. Um, and they hide. They stay small. They may more than one starts, collecting and happening uh, around these just whatever random power stones in the mountain range, and they form some sort of community. They realize and recognize that they're different. They don't want to go home because they want to be with the stone. They like what the stone has. They're familiar with the stone because since their family was mining, looking for stone, or they're part of whatever clan of dwarves that is, they found the stone and left it in place and carved out a temple around it. Um, and they understand like when I'm in the presence of this magic sparkly thing, oh, it's wonderful. I feel really nice, and like, oh, this one I can actually touch, and um, so as a result, yeah, they just kind of are stuck in this weird state where they're just crawling around in the caverns, um, possibly kidnapping children that they find alone, or if a child wanders off and they come across like, oh, hey, you can bring them in, because they would have a little network going on. I'm thinking also they would be able to mentally commune to develop a hive mind, perhaps. So that's part of what's leading me to thinking that the stone it was once part of something big together, and so as a result, it's trying to come together, and that's part of why when people start, it's like it's when beings, life forms interact with this thing, and they start developing a intelligence and a hive mentality, hive mind. The So these guys are really good at throwing stones, throwing stalactites as darts. Um, they I'm not sure about language. I think they would treat the stone as living god. They're going to protect it. They're going to try to sabotage any miners they get nearby. And if one guy gets alone, kill that guy and then scavenge tools, weapons, clothing off of him. And yeah, so part 7, magic in hand. So at some point on this planet, they realize like, hey, you know, like, all right, we're kind of growing, developing our thing, and in the ocean there's these sea monsters, and there's a side of the planet that is pretty crazy, and we don't go there because there's things that'll kill you, and it's like it's definitely a different side of the world, and um, but these, it's just, guys came to realize like, okay, it's these stones, these little, and they can be as small as a speck, but they grow, and they become eventually, a rock, and becomes, and who knows how big it will become, but it's power, and it gives you and grants you power, and they realize that. So those who are foolish enough to journey to the magic side of the world, and risk their lives, because who knows what'll kill you, but also because like, how do you find these, how would you find these things? It's like at first they'd realize like, okay, inside of the monsters is a stone, so try to hunt down the monsters. And if you're primitive humans, like, all right, so it's clan, it's family, it's clan, it's like a group effort, a tribe that goes and hunts these things down. And so in the primitive landscape of a world, these tribes are living, controlling things, and eventually get to the point of they get, each tribe essentially has a stone as its center, and just kind of growing from there. Like then they get two stones, and then more, and then they come to realize like, okay, the stones come from over there, and so those who go hunting and collecting the stones, eventually those become the dwarves. And I think that there'd be enough of a, because like what I think what ends up happening is magic in a lot of scenarios, it limits the technology and the height that a community can get to, the society civilization can get to a point. And this has been explored in other by other people online, because the idea that, well, for magic it's how much can one person accumulate, and that becomes power that the person gathers to themselves. So the more power, like, well, hey, what, if I'm just by myself, why don't I control things? And because I have this power, and so continue to rise in power, and then eventually, well, let's kill this guy who's ruling us as a tyrant. So it kind of topples down. The magic is scattered. Who knows? As the same with the dragon. That all right, dragon is powerful, but do we band together and kill it? Okay, dragon eggs. Let's raise the babies. Oh, now now we have dragons that we're raising. What can we do with these guys? Hey, guess what? Now we're powerful dragon riders. And well, who has the best dragon? Who has the most power? And yeah, and they kill each other. Who knows? So in this world, it's because of the question of like, does magic exist in this world outside of these stones? So that's why I think is an interesting. It's a dilemma that I'm facing as a writer, because like, all right, because if yes, things are one way. If no, things are another way. I'm kind of leaning towards there is no magic; it's just the stones. So then, okay, what can the stones do? And as a result, like, what effect does this have? So this is where like I also need the crowdsourcing, because like, anyways, so you can't really necessarily trade these stones. People covet them. Like researching and finding what you can do with the stones is a challenge. The Yeah, and plus, in the scenario of this world, people are staying away from the oceans and large rivers, estuaries, because they realize like that's where the sea monsters live. So yeah, what does the stone do? Can a person manipulate the stone? So one idea, it grants the user the ability to manipulate matter, but how? With thought, words, which convey a certain intention, specific magic words to cause a specific action. So it's like I say alakadabra, and this wand shoots a lightning bolt. Like, okay, so that's the mechanism of this magic device, and it needs the power source of the stone, and so yeah, so you have to figure out the system of that. Um, which kind of it does help because Dungeons and Dragons magic, other things like, oh, why can't you just do this? The Force, like, oh, just use the Force to do this or that. You know, you can pull down a whole Star Destroyer. Oh, awesome! So, because I mean, you can also do this, you know, with the Force, and um, so the second idea, a person holds a stone or wears it, and as time goes on, the stone and the person, they begin to bond, and this bond gives the person powers which grow over time. So, with that scenario, what powers start beginning to manifest? Um, because I like the idea of, you know, you can sense a stone when it's around. When you see it, you like, oh, I feel it. I feel the power. You know, maybe. Or actually, I'm leaning more towards if you pull it from the ground, it hasn't had a chance to like embed itself in rock. You can recognize there's something about it. Like it may give off light or not give off light. Um, but when you hold it, that's when you recognize like, oh, there's something about this. It has power. And yeah, so by the person holding the stone, it activates the stone. It makes the stone come to life. You know, do the things it's going to do. So then, what does it do? and how do these powers grow over time? So yeah, that's that whole can of worms. Third idea: a stone can be broken apart using a diamond chisel and incredible force, and or a forge to prepare it. So like just get a really hot fire, put the stone in there, and then put on your anvil and diamond chisel, and hopefully you really get a good solid crack on it, and you can hopefully crack off a piece. So it can be done. Just requires a certain amount of technology and resources. So like a kingdom would be able to get to the point that they could start messing around and doing things with stone, conceivably. But then it becomes like, okay, so get a stone, break it into, or however many pieces you can, give the pieces to your family members. Yeah. So the smaller pieces behave like the original stone, but not sure if they lose power or ability as a result. So that's the other thing, is that I'm not certain like what size of the stone and what power in relation. Because I'm kind of leaning towards, you can just put a bunch of stones together. They'll meld together. They'll grow together. But there would be no difference between that chunk of the stone versus holding onto a speck of it. It's just the stone grows, and it gives off power. Fourth idea: attaching a stone to something causes that item to have a power of some sort. Either the item can manipulate something, or given access to a fuel source, can cause an effect. For example, attaching various stones, such as quartz, hematite, topaz, etc., could cause an aura effect. Aura. That protects the user in some way, or makes them alert or able to read people's minds or intentions. Or attaching a stone to copper causes the copper to carry an electrical current, and a primitive form of electrical theory and technology can develop, which I'm actually liking more of that. Attaching to iron and connecting to a jar of a flammable oil could maybe create a flamethrower, or stone attached to an iron tube. You stick that tube in a body of water, and it causes the water to do what? So, yeah. Number 8, necromancy. Scenario. The necromancer gets a freshly dead person, puts them on the operating table. They stick a rod through the nostril to break the cranial cavity bone there to create a hole. The Egyptians would do this when they wanted to clean out removed brain tissue. And so it breaks the hole in there. They take a piece of stone and shove it in that hole. I think if the necromancer adds their blood to the stone, before putting the cadaver, it grants the necromancer the ability to mind control over the person they resurrect. It's like basically this is or resurrect is the person I'm describing. So, shortly after placement, person comes to life. They may regain all their faculties and abilities. And I think without interference, the person would be free of mind control. I'm brought back to life. They're back, like it was a weird dream, you feel really bad, kind of like horrible, but you're feeling better and better and stronger, and hey, wow, I feel amazing, So, however, the stone would slowly grant the resurrect person powers, as well as make the person act strange, as they would feel like they're on drugs, as if they were a god. They would be able to sustain tremendous physical damage to their bodies. They would not age. Eventually, the stone would continue to grow inside of the person, and likely faster since blood is bringing nutrients and material in contact with the stone. And I'm thinking that the resurrect would grow in physical size a little bit after a while. Like you would just notice, like, are they becoming a giant? And like I'm not sure how big they would grow, but I like see it, like for whatever reason, like they're just bigger. And their head would then also begin to swell, followed by the neck swelling to support the weight. Eventually, the head, the stone in the head would grow so large that the resurrect would have trouble holding their head up. They would have to literally use their hands to hold their head up, and who knows how they would be able to eat or something. And since the euphoria feeling they're experiencing would continue and increase, like they're just like, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. I'm fine. There's nothing wrong. Like huge, noggin going on, or like eventually, if the person tripped, hit their head, and with enough force, the stone would burst out of their skull. And otherwise, and they try to do things to other people, and people are like, hey, this guy's weak, and kill him, when they can get the chance. So, a zombie, on the other hand, the scenario: the necromancer gets the corpse, cuts into a vein of the corpse, takes a stone, cuts himself to bleed on the stone, goes into the vein of the corpse, and eventually the corpse comes under control of the necromancer. The zombie has no memories and basically is an automaton. The necromancer has to tell it what to do. If the eyes are not decomposed enough, the necromancer can see through the eyes, can hear through the ears, maybe smell and taste. If they knew it, really they have to know about biology because they're controlling the body of the zombie. And that means they have to tell the zombie, breathe, keep breathing. And just plant that as a command. Tell the heart, beat, keep beating. So that also means that the physical biological processes of that cadaver is still going on, as if it was a living person. That means that their digestive tract is going to be working as well. So you tell the zombie, go drink water, eat something. And that's going to be really complicated, hold your breath, now buy some food, chew on it, drink some water, swallow it, now breathe again. It's like, oh man. but they would grow strong. They would be able to live as long as they had nourishment coming to their bodies. And but yeah, and you would not be able to control their digestive system, so urine and fecal matter would be dribbling out of them all the time. They can regenerate and grow flesh and tissue, provided that it's not decomposed to a point. Like, so yeah, cut into them, but the blood will flow as long as there's enough blood in there, and start rebuilding the body. The magic of the stone is kind of messing around with the blood and helping it. They it's difficult to control. They're moved around like a puppet. They can kind of move their feet, but they don't have a sense of balance. So the guy has to keep an eye on it to keep it upright. He can move his arms around, but it's kind of flailing. So they can give him like really heavy things though. It's like a long spear, and just do that. Conceivably, you can get a bunch of these guys together, and it would be really weird because it's making me think of Westworld. So you have a bunch of naked, dead, well, undead people standing, lifeless, in a barn, naked, and in the morning you come in, open the door, order them to like go bathe because like just the filth of it all, and then say, okay, come out now, go through the process of having them eat and drink. Like, all right, now let's go work, doing whatever labor, but the thing is, like, they're going to continue to grow in strength. So put them farm labor, manual labor, just all right, and just watch as they grow in strength. Like they struggle to carry the 50-pound sack, and then it's nothing. Now they can carry two 50-pound sacks. Now they're carrying more, and yeah. But you would train and learn to operate these zombies. Then you go into battle, put a bunch of armor on them. You give them the heavy, long weapons, so spears and maybe a longsword, but yeah, I'm thinking more like a spear. And then just have them go in a line, and they're just waving spear points and stuff, and have guys behind them, so if they break a spear, they hand a new one, to the zombie. Okay, so number 9, magic outside of stones. So this is where I come back to the idea, like, all right, is there magic outside of the stones? Or is this is a normal world and just half of it got peppered with magic stones, which has wreaked this havoc, this ecological, biological havoc upon things. And yeah, grants people powers, and they can do things with them. So, because I'm also thinking, if magic already exists in this world, and then the stones happen that's where the idea, like, okay, an average person, they get a stone, like, oh, they develop some powers. An intelligent person gets a stone, they can, like, oh, I can do a lot more with this. A wizard gets a stone, and is like, now I have access to tremendous power. I can do incredible things with it. Yeah, and this is why I'm crowdsourcing. I could use I want your guys' input. I'm really curious what people think, especially in terms of the sea monsters, and even just like land animals that could exist, because it's like, all right, so what sort of trees could you have, and what happens if that tree grows monstrous, and the byproducts of that tree, and like what happens if you change the biology in this or that way. So, like, it's just so much. This is a little overwhelming for me, so let me know what you guys think. Thank you.